Welcome back to Nomad Boatbuilding. We've been plugging away at the shear structure on the Catalina Wherry, and now that that's done, we can start moving on to the interior and finishing details. So this week we're going to get started on the thwart risers. Those are longitudinal members that support the thwarts, obviously. Sometimes they're referred to as clamps, but sometimes the inwales are referred to as clamps as well. So without getting into the weeds about terminology, let's get right down to work. Alright, I've got some material cut out here. These are going to be our thwart risers, so I thought I'd show you a little something. So first of all, the stock that I used for the thwart risers had a natural sweep in it, so I decided to work with that. So I basically took a batten, sprung it along the swept rough sawn edge, offset that batten the same distance that my circular saw base is offset from the blade, and then cut a nice clean line down there. Now it's not 100% super clean because it is a circular saw cut. It's always got a little bit of wiggle to it, but clean enough. And from that I run it on the table saw with the crown against the fence and cut away my material here for the thwart risers, and each leaving the sweep in the finished piece. So by putting the crown against the fence, the sweep just kind of sweeps away from the fence line. You just need to keep it tight right by the blade. A little bit dodgy, but not too bad. So I thought I would show you a little something about the thwart risers here. So I'm going to taper them out, both vertically and laterally. So if we look at this particular piece here, this one has got a nice bit of sweep to it. You can see it goes, got a good hook to it. I'm just going to leave that the way it is, and I'm going to work with that. And so I'm using the big sweep in this piece to mark this piece. So we're going to taper them out in their height. And this piece just happened to come out straighter than this one. It's something that often happens when you've got a piece of material, especially if it's flat sawn. You cut a piece out, the next piece they don't always spring to the same shape. There's natural tensions in the wood. So I'm using this sweep as a marking batten and just leaving it the way it is. I've offset it the distance that I want to reduce this guy at one end and at the other end. So I'm taking them both down to 1.25 inches at the ends. They're 2 inches at the middle. And that's partially to make them a little bit lighter, and also to make them a little easier to spring into place. And so what I'm doing here is, if I take these guys and I drop this on those offset marks, I've already drawn on here with a pencil crayon to mark out this difference, marking the bottom one. And I actually followed it up with a regular graphite pencil. The white pencil crayon just makes the graphite show up a bit better because, it can be hard to see a pencil line on. So now I'm going to flip this over, and now what I'm doing is I'm allowing the piece underneath, or that's now on top, to describe me a new shape for the top of the other one. So now it's tapering it out too. And what that's doing is it's going to give us a matched set. So by the time I'm done, I'm assuming it doesn't spring to a different shape too much after I do any cutting, I should have two pieces that are identical. All right, there we go. So now if I flip this over, the portions that are marked out are identical. Of course, the usual disclaimers apply here. Yeah, this is dangerous. Yeah, I'm doing this. Don't do this just because I'm doing this.
That's not working well.
I was getting a lot of chip out with that flush trim router bit, so we're going to do it by hand. Sometimes you just need to put in the sweat. This segment is for all you folks who complain about the music in my videos. Now I'll just put a little chamfer on the corners. Chamfer? Camphor? I'm going to go with chamfer. I like chamfer, even though some people spell it camphor. It just sounds weird. So we'll go with chamfer. So we're going to chamfer the corners of these guys. And this segment is for all you folks who don't complain about the music in my videos. And for those who do complain, just suck it up for the next minute or two. It'll be short. So there's the first stick in the box. I think I'll wait about 15 minutes or something like that before getting the next one in. And that's just to stagger the time between installing one in the boat and then installing the other in the boat. So I'll just let that sit for a little while and then we'll be back. All right, we're gonna try and get these in-whales in now. So I'm just gonna go pull them out of the box. So I've got some props here to try and help hold them in place. Got some clamps. I've got blocking on a bunch of the frames to help to control the height, and I'm really hoping those do the job. I might have to just like pop those out of the way and just clamp it up near the shear. I don't know yet until I try it, but get the first one out. I think I got to come back maybe and slip it in from the front. No, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. So these thwart risers are about 7/8 of an inch thick, and they've probably been in the steam box for about an hour. Now the general rule of thumb is an hour per inch of thickness, but that's a very loose rule, and it really has a lot to do with the ambient temperature outside, how well your box holds heat, how much moisture content's in the wood, how tight the bend is, all these sort of things.
Okay.
When I pull the stock out of the box, I want it to be just a little bit too hot to hold onto with bare hands. It should kind of hurt to hang on to it. And there's sort of a slight floppiness to the stock that you can feel when it's steamed just right.
Nice. That went a little easier than expected. It's not quite grabbing the way I would like it to, but maybe I'll shift it down.
Of course, the biggest challenge is trying to clamp something that sits this low in the hull. My deepest clamps can just barely reach.
There's always a bunch of these things you just can't really anticipate until you got it in.
So the simple solution is you use some blocks of wood and you cantilever the clamping pressure. Of course, if you're doing this sort of thing on a regular basis, building clamps that are specifically designed to clamp deep like this might be a worthwhile endeavor. There's a few different styles of clamps that might work. A Brunny style plank clamp comes to mind. And it took about 20 takes to finally spit that out without tongue twisting it.
Clamping outside the hull like this is always problematic with the clamp, just because there's nowhere for me to stand. These clamps in the way, just don't have enough room in the shop here. Swap it out with this one. Get this out of there. Good. That went swimmingly. If you're wondering why my sweater has got this giant tear in the front, it's because every time I walk past one of these clamps, it catches on the sweater right in that spot. Well, I couldn't hope for much better than that, I think. All right, let's get the other side in, and we'll have to figure out how to make ourselves useful for the rest of the day with all this junk in the way.
Take note of those blocks that are clamped in place to the frames. Those are really important for this little operation. The trick with bending in thwart risers is it's not really tricky bending them to the curve of the hull, it's getting the twist into them, because they really want to flare out at the bottom usually. when you're trying to bend them in. And so you need to counteract that flare to get them to lie flush against the frames. Take stick and pair. Yeah. Definitely a little different. That's great. Now I didn't bother trying to run them all dead level. I'm just following the shear line. And that's partially because we want the sort of seating height to remain about the same. Although I should maybe I should drop it a little at the bow to level it out some. There we go. That way Joe isn't sitting on too much of a slope when he's in the forward rolling position here. Well, the risers are still in place here. I'm going to put in some fasteners. So I decided to drop it down at the bow about an inch just to try and level out this seating area back here, make it not quite so. So I made some blocks that are fitted to that spot, and everywhere else throughout the boat we've got blocking, locating the height of the rub rail. It helped me when I was bending it in, but it's also going to help me when it comes to putting it back in, because I can use these blocks and just put them in place with some like these little cam clamps, and it's going to push it, it's going to locate this rub rail exactly where it needs to be, so I don't screw up and drive a fastener in a spot that there isn't a hole. Now I'm just doing some pre-drilling right now for those fasteners. This is only going to be a temporary installation because I want to pull this out, do all the painting, and put it back in afterwards. So I'm doing just the pilot holes. So at each location I take a little stick and I'm just checking the depth, my potential depth for the fasteners. And of course we want to try and go as deep as possible. And I'm just comparing it against the fastener I'm set up for. So I'm set up for like a 1 3/4 inch fastener right here. And I could go to 2 inches on this one. I'm going to be doing a combination of 1 3/4 at the ends, and then because where the frame's a bit shallower, and then 2 inches in the middle where there's just more strain on the thwart riser in general. So I just want to check each time that I'm safe to drill my hole. And I want to drill nice and square to the
riser itself and right in line with the angle of the frame. And of course, I've got my drill bit flagged off for the depth. So a few more to do, and as I go, I'm readjusting these clamp pads, and in some cases, the riser wants to sort of tip out at the top or at the bottom. So depending on where it is in the boat, there's a different amount of twist coming at it. And so in some cases, I'm actually shifting the position of that fastener either high or low on the in-whale or the thwart riser in order to compensate for that extra strain that it's under. Okay, so here amidships, I can't really get my fastener in properly with this crossball in place, so I'm just going to get that out of the way. I've already established that it's not really doing much anymore, so we'll just move it. Check that my thwart riser is actually planted where it needs to be. Okay, there he is, nice and tight. I already know I'm going to be sitting low on this thwart, on this frame. Here's a little technique I like to use. So I take my drill bit, this is to help with alignment. I slide it over to the thing I want to align to get myself oriented. I'll slide it up, and then I'll come over here, do this little dance, shifting over to the center of the thing, and then walk it up till I'm in the spot I want to put that fastening. And that's just a little something I find is helpful to try and sort of get all the alignment just right. You'll notice I almost always drill these holes in several steps, and that's to clear chips out. Just makes everything go a lot easier. This being the center thwart, I'm tempted to put a second fastener in, but I don't think I will. I think I'll just leave it at one. All right, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching, and please join us again next time. Now, when I release these videos on Patreon, I also include a short article that takes the subject of the video and expands upon it in some way. That's just one of the little perks of joining me on Patreon. You can find a link in the corner or down in the description. I appreciate everybody who helps me out in any way you can. Until next time, see you later, folks.